Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Highline Ballroom here in New York City. Today, I had an honor and privilege of speaking with Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Eric Burdon. And as you might know, over his 5 decades in the industry, this man has put out some very authentic music and has written some very authentic songs within the rock and roll as well as soul and blues vein. In fact, he was the head lead singer of the group called The Animals and the New Animals, as well as founded the group War. He has a brand new CD which he just released called Till the River Runs Dry. In fact, it's a very eclectic mix of Eric's upbringing listening to American roots music over in the UK. We sat down earlier and we talked about the new CD. We talked about him being really exposed to the blues as well as rhythm and blues. And we also talked about how important he was to rock and soul in the 1960s, as well as part of that famous British invasion, which included the Rolling Stones, the Herman's Hermits, Gary and the Pacemakers. The list goes on and on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Mr. Eric Burdon live here at the Highline Ballroom here in New York City.
This world is not for me. I'll make a new one. Wait and see. Homelessness has seized the land. I will not beg. I will demand. I won't give up. And one day soon, the truth will smell into your living room. Water, water, water. The truth put down the fire. Water, water, water. Truth to shame the liar. Yeah. All right. This world is not what it seems. Behind these eyes, the curse of dreams. Will your God forgive you then? Or will mine have his revenge? Water, water, water. Drink to put down the fire. Water, water, water. The truth to shame the liar. Water, water, water. The drink to put down the fire. Water, water, water. Teardrops from my eyes. Water, water, to put down the fire. Water, water, water.
This new album is just, you're all over the place. There's blues, there's rock, there's soul, there's a little bit of jazz, and then there's also the typical Eric Burdon on this album.
Well, yeah, that's me. I'm always all over the place, you know, to the point of where I'm longing to be in one place, you know, from times, you know, a little bit, you know, but that's the name of the game. You got to travel.
I think what's really, really beautiful on this CD is you did a wonderful and stirring tribute to an icon in rock and roll, which is Bo Diddley. And tell me about how you really came into his existence as far as his music and what really put you into the place of writing that song.
Well, it goes back as far as when I was 15 years of age. He came to my hometown, and I tried to get to meet him then. And one really hilarious thing that sticks in my mind was I met the the guys who were on the support band. They were Germans called the Rattles. And as I met them, and I said, I want to meet Bo Diddley. And they said, well, he's gone out shopping at the moment. And I said, well, any idea when he'll be back? And they said, well, we don't know. He's gone out shopping for a chicken. I was like, chicken? And I said, yeah. And later on, I was walking down a corridor underneath the high-rise with dressing rooms, and these fellas were coming out with the dressing rooms. So he had a habit of cooking, on a small stove, which a lot of blues guys did that, I thought that was a wonderful indication as to his character. And then I was on lots of shows over the years where he would be leaving the stage when I was going on, and vice versa. So we never really met. And but I was always a big fan of his. And I did a song dedicated to him on my first album called "The Story of Bo Diddley." So he must have been aware of that. And when he passed on, his family invited us to go down to the funeral. So we went down there, and strangely enough, the first time I met him face to face, he was lying in a coffin with an open top, like bizarre, beautifully bizarre, And the local press down there were like, when did you first meet Bo Diddley? And I just said, well, just 5 minutes ago inside the church, Well, what do you mean? Pretty strange relationship, But for real, that's for sure. I always thought he was one of the most, the brightest characters in rock and rhythm and blues. He was a very powerful guy, but a very gentle guy at the same time.
He spent his life with his guitar slung real low. Thinking that he will beat wherever he goes. From the streets of Mississippi, all the way to Tokyo. The most African American I ever did know. So I'm riding on that Bo Diddley session. Riding on that Bo Diddley line.
Eric, what was the first time, or when was the first time that rhythm and blues and jazz creeped into your psyche?
The first shock that I got was a movie that I used to go see. This underground movie theater in my hometown, and you weren't supposed to get in unless you were like 17 or something. But I would just jive my way through, and I would go and see movies like French movies, like with Brigitte Bardot and Jean Moreau and all that kind of stuff. And there was an American film that was very left field. It was an actor studio production with all of the best of the actors from the actor studio in New York. And Carol Baker starring in it, and it was called Baby Doll. And it was back then it was promoted as a very heavy, sexy kind of adult thing. But I saw it just recently, and in light of passage of time, it's really quite funny actually. But the opening sequence was like, whoa, what is this? And it was Miley Lewis singing "Shame, Shame, Shame," and that was the introduction to the movie. It set the tone for the movie, like, this is about the South, You know, this is about the old South creeping into the new South, and the the hot, steamy sexuality that people have, the opinion that people have of the southern states. You know, it was a great film. It was a great experience, and it was the first time that I'd really heard rhythm and blues. And then after that, jukeboxes began to leak rhythm and blues tracks along with the rock and roll stuff that was becoming popular, you know, along with the time that Elvis had his first release in England, and with Bill Haley and the Comets and all that kind of stuff. In between that, you know, there would be like Honky Tonk by Bill Doggett, you know, and stuff like that, you know. And one or two white guys had it as well, like Eddie Cochran and people like that, you know. And they would tour, and they would come to my hometown. I remember Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent coming to my hometown, and the car crash that happened and took Eddie Cochran's life was right outside of my hometown. So I started to begin to understand that I could be a part of this living history of American music, you know. It stayed with me from that point on. I mean, prior to that, I was a big fan of like the Basie Band, Ellington, and I liked vocalists like Joe Turner, Joe Williams, Jimmy Rushin. Came to the States, and I was fortunate enough to run into Jimmy Witherspoon and Joe Turner in a bar one night, and I asked Jimmy, you know, hey, what are you doing? You know, not much. Well, you know, how about we make a record together? You know, and so I produced and recorded a record with Jimmy, and toured with him, and that was a great experience. You know.
So much colder than my father was a soldier then. Time very hard when I was young, yeah. When I was young. So my first cigarette attempt, and the girl I had back then. When I was young, smoked my first cigarette at 10, and the girls I had back then. But I learned so very much when I was young, yeah. When I was young.
know, your music background spans all genres. I mean, you just went into how rhythm and blues affected your psyche when it came to England. At the time you were part of the Animals in the early 1960s, mid 1960s, there was this big thing called the British Invasion. And a lot of the bands were really influenced by a lot of American rhythm and blues bands. What was the take of that time period? Explain the period of the fashion, the clothes, as well as the music, as well as just the counterculture of how the times were changing.
Well, you know, as kids, we had money in our pockets for the first time as teenagers. I was at art school. I was an art student, and we had long holidays. So during the long holidays, I would take any kind of like manual labor, or I worked in a Newcastle brewery for a while. I delivered meat and worked in a butcher shop for a while. I worked in a cinema for all kinds of stuff. Just anything to put money in my pocket so that I could get to London and get to a record store in London called Bell's in the West End of London. And it was known for its jazz music, and I'd be able to find rhythm and blues albums there, and jazz stuff too. But then I went as far afield as Paris, and Paris was like my first introduction to America, really, because the weather, hot summers, you know, and most of the Parisians leave and they go to the south of France, and that leaves the enclave of clubs operating and working with expatriates from the United States. And I met Memphis Slim, Chet Baker, a few other guys whose name could come to my mind at the moment. But yeah, I used to go to this club called Trois Malais and sit on the bench next to yeah, I mean, it's just amazing time. And yeah, we were very fashion conscious, you know. There was a lot of different fashions with the Teddy Boys, the Edwardian style, with the velvet collars and the draped suits that had to be thumb length, big thick crepe shoes, you know. And then it evolved into like mods and rockers, you know. And the mods would ride scooters, Italian scooters, and anoraks, you know. And then the rockers like myself would, you know, ride motorcycles and leather jackets, and we were into Marlon Brando and James Dean and all that kind of stuff, you know. So it split up into different kind of cultural gangs, but there wasn't any violence, you know. There was, I mean, there wasn't totally free of violence. There was some violence, but you know, nothing really murderous, you know. I mean, just running street battles, you know. It was really great. I mean, and it was great to be an art student, you know. I mean, I was like, I had lots of time on my hands. I could travel regularly to mainland Europe, and I met a guy in Ostend in Brussels, and he had a jukebox, and he would let us bring our own records and put our own records on the jukebox. And one time we were listening to Ray Charles, and he said, that was so-and-so playing that sax solo. And I said, no, it was Fathead Newman. And he said, no, you're wrong. I said, well, I bet you, you know, 25 pounds or whatever. Years later, I was in London Heathrow Airport, and this guy comes up to me and he says, okay, you won the bet. And I looked up and I said, what do you mean won the bet? And he goes, it was Fathead Newman. And I said, wow, oh, Freddie. Then I find out that this guy, Freddie Coussart was his name, is the guy that rescued Marvin Gaye, you know, and took Marvin under his wing and got him away from the coke, and got him on the beach and training and all that kind of stuff, you know. So there's this like built-in brotherhood of musicians and music lovers, you know. And it started to grow and grow until we started playing in our own bands, you know. We started forming our own bands. And then the next thing I knew, I was on tour with Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Tommy Tucker and people like that, you know. And then I went through those periods where like I'd be sitting there waiting to go on, thinking I have to go on stage and follow Chuck Berry. I mean, he was my hero, you know. I mean, and in Chuck's lyrics, I mean, I found out more about America in Chuck Berry's lyrics than I did in any history book or any school lessons or whatever, you know, because he wrote about the American experience from the point of view of youth, you know, and his lyrics were just incredible. I think he's like the poet laureate of America, you know. The guy's such a great writer.
You know, there was such a witch hunt against Chuck Berry here in the States with those crazy charges, but he was so revered overseas. In fact, you know, you and a whole bunch of other guys overseas hold him in high regard.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure we did. We, you know, I literally used to live by the next Chuck Berry release. You know, we'd be waiting for the next 45 to come and be on, get on the jukebox and listen to it and say, what's he saying about? You know, and yeah, and it was the same with Fats Domino. It was like, yes, it's me, you know. No, what did he say? Yes, it's me, and I'm in jail again. No, it's me, and I'm in love again, you know. And then somehow we'd get the sheet music and we'd find out what the lyrics were, you know. But it was always a competition to find out who would be the first to translate the lyrics, you know. And then by then, you know, we had our own band going, you know. We had several bands going, and then one of them came out of the middle, and it happened to be the Animals, and we got on the Chuck Berry tour, which was a big thing. Everybody wanted to be on the Chuck Berry tour. Everybody was standing in line hoping to get on that tour, and we got it because we had the right agent, I guess. And yeah, and I'd heard lots of stories about Chuck, you know, about how tough he was.
He had to be.
To get on. Yeah, he had to be, you know. But he was really cool with me. He took me out to dinner and, you know, gave me fatherly advice, you know, and all of that, you know, which, of course, I didn't take any notice of it. I just nodded my head at the time and went, yeah, cool, thanks, you know. But, you know, there was no stopping me. And, yeah, the memories of people that I met were just great. I met Louis Armstrong when I was like, I think I was 14, and standing outside of the main gig in my hometown, and you could hear the show through a crack in the door, you know? And I was banging my head against the door, and people gathered around, you know. They got wise to the fact that you could hear the music because it was a sold-out show, you know. And there was a copper standing next to me. This policeman, and he was watching me, and at the interval he went inside, and then he must have said something to somebody in there, and then Jack T. Gordon came out, you know, and put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Hey, come on, kid, I got a surprise for you." You know? He took me into a dressing room, and there was Louis Armstrong sitting there with his feet in a bowl of hot water, you know, and his black little lady was cooling him off with a towel and everything, you know, and he's smoking a big joint, you know. It's like, oh, what's that smell, you know? I'll never forget that, you know. Yeah, it was wonderful. I got to meet almost everybody that I wanted to just by virtue of that doorway. I'd be standing in that doorway, and you know, and I'd see this guy coming down the road in an army greatcoat with a big Stetson on, you know, and a guitar underneath his arm. And he looks at the door. How do I get in here? I said, "You want me to open the door for you?" "Yeah, it's Big Bill Brunzi." was like, wow, Big Bill. You know, so I ran around the theater, broke in through the front door, running through the street, the seats, and then to the backstage, and then kicked the door open, and whoa, thank you. And he opened his guitar up and sat down, started playing, you know. And so I had this, like, my own personal, private concert with Big Bill. It was stuff like that happening all the time. It was amazing. It was really cool.
Baby, do you understand me now? Yeah. Sometimes you see it out. Lord knows I get mad. Don't you know no one alive?
Instrumental in the 1960s for introducing the UK to a very, very important soul folk icon by the name of Nina Simone.
Yeah.
And I understand that when you were here in New York, you had the opportunity to meet Nina Simone, and this is in your book, and I also heard you tell this story, but this is very, very important. She's the one that almost, well, she did cuss you out, but at the same time, you put her in her place.
Yeah, she came across heavy, angry. She had a lot of anger, and that's quite understandable. I understand what it's like. I understood what it's like being black in America. It ain't easy, And to be a performer, it's your, an artist. It's your job to take a stance for your people and for your music, and let them know what you feel, And so I was kind of pushed there by a girl who became Paul McCartney's wife, Linda Eastman. And I was like, oh, I'm not going backstage to meet Nina. And she was like, yeah, you've got to. We've got to meet you. you got to meet your fears, you know. You got to face the tiger, you know. And she was kind of like, at first she was like, "Oh, so you're the guy who took my song," and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, you know. Okay, you might think that, you know, but actually, you know, we've opened the door for you in Europe, you know, and when you get there, you'll see, you know, that, and I also had some information in my back pocket about her recording, you know, her recording process, and was able to, like, okay, you know, so I recorded Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, but, you know, it was written by Horace for his wife, and they chose you, and I chose it, so, no, you know, as I say in another song, I was given this gift without asking, you know, it was just there, and then all of a sudden she just changed completely. "Oh, my name's Nina Simone. What's your name? Sit down. Would you like a cup of tea?" You know, that kind of thing. You know? And then when she came to England, I had the job of being her, like, chaperone around town in London, you know. And I'll never forget, I said to her one afternoon, I said, "Tonight I'm taking you to a black club in the West End of London, the Flamingo, all night." And she said, "You're going to take me to see my people?" I was like, "Yeah," you know. And when we got there, she grabbed the hold of me. She said, "Don't let me go," you know. She was like, there's all these crazy Jamaicans, man. The place was packed, you know, to the brim, and she was pretty freaked out, but, you know, she settled down, and we had a great time. So I always loved her. She's a great woman, great woman.
The studio part of the city, the sun refused to shine. Tell me there ain't no use in trying, no, no, no. Oh, girl, you're so young and pretty. One thing I know is true. Dead before your time is due, yeah, yeah.
You know, everybody knows your famous tenure with the Animals, but I want to elaborate a little bit on the breakup of the Animals and you going solo. You recorded a solo record, and then you reformed the New Animals. And this is a period of your life when you wrote some of your most prolific songs, and the press and the music fans started to take you more seriously.
Well, yeah, you mean the second group of Animals? Yeah, well, you know, the original Animals had to break up. It was getting really close and lots of, yeah. And we were in the Bahamas cutting a record down there, and then I just said, I've had enough. You know? So I heard that there was lots of great stuff going on in California. That was kind of like revolutionary stuff going on, so I wanted to join the revolution. So I came to LA, and went back to London, found a bunch of like-minded guys, and then we put the New Animals together. And the record company demanded that I use the name The Animals, so it had to become the New Animals. And yeah, we cut some really, I think, you know, innovative stuff. You know, the English didn't like it at all. It didn't reach English ears at all. So I just stayed in California and kept on trucking, and then eventually that band broke away, and I ended up working with War, and also did an album with Jimmy Witherspoon, and I toured with Jimmy, and I felt like I was free again. I felt like the shackles were off. I felt the days with the Animals were very. We were locked up in hotel rooms all the time. You couldn't go anywhere you wanted to. You couldn't jam. You're told you can't jam. You can't be jamming with people. And from a business standpoint, I see where they were coming from. I mean, you're a product. You become a product, and if you're giving that product away, then the price is going to fall, obviously, But I just didn't want to see it that way. I didn't care, So I'd be jamming around the clubs, and eventually these jams led to getting together with War, who were from down at Long Beach, California. And they were a kind of a mixture of Latin funk, and I thought, here's an opportunity to, get into a whole different arena, and I liked Latin music a lot. So, and obviously, I liked black funk music, and I felt that I could introduce the blues to the guys, which kind of fell on deaf ears. They didn't like that at all. They didn't like the concept of blues.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. That first record you did with War, the opening track, the tribute to Roland Kirk.
Yeah.
I mean, 1969, that's some groundbreaking stuff that you put out there and put out to commercial fans. And I was surprised in 1969 that the fans got that.
Yeah, they did. The fans got it more than the band did, I mean, it worked well, and we did that sort of blues overs, Memphis Slim's Mother Earth, and I had to twist Lonnie Jordan's arm, to get him to play that church intro, which was magnificent. Once he got his fingers into it, it was great. But that didn't last too long. They had their own thing going, and we split up. And then I got together with Witherspoon, and then things went completely haywire. We got really screwy. I realized that I'd been singing nonstop, different bands since I was like 16 years of age. And now I was approaching 30, and there was things I wanted to say and do, So I went to Mexico for a year. I drove around Mexico for a year, and I was glad I did that. That was a magnificent experience. And then it was difficult for me to get anything really, get the kindling to get a fire going again. It just wasn't there. So I went to Europe, and in hope of finding what was left of the English scene in Hamburg. And there was still a few guys that were a part of that scene there. And I got tight instantly with the biggest rock star in Germany at the time. He still is huge there, a guy called Udo Lindenberg. And the first night I met him was in a club belonging to a gang of bikers, they had a news crew there. So I was on television instantly, and instantly became like a German rock star, which was fine for a couple of years. I had a great time, but then trying to get back into UK and into the US was impossible. Nobody was interested in a guy who was big in Germany, But I will always be grateful for the German fans and their appreciation of what I was doing back then. And they're really the kids over there are really astute when it comes to music. They follow music like we do football games. They'll go on a regular basis to a club to see who's playing, who's performing there. So I was back for a while. I was back in jamming heaven, you know, in the clubs, not making much money, and thanks to the musicians, I had a place to stay, you know, and all of that. But I was really like washed up on another shore, you know, that's for sure. You know, and I had to get back somehow to the States. And when I got back to California, I was like, well, it's like starting all over again. And the same demons came out of the gutters and alleyways, you know, and it took me a long time to sort of break through and get back on my feet again, you know.
Eric Burdon, what does rock and roll mean to you?
I've always felt that the drum beat in rock and roll is a heartbeat. You know, it's a heartbeat of life, and blues is made up of basically 3 chords. You know, and you can take that for whatever you want. You know, it's earth, sun, moon, father, child. You know. Mother, father, child, whatever. It's symbolic, you know. It's a magical 3, number 3, plus backbeat. And I think it's kind of like that music became the soundtrack for the 20th century and the 21st century, you know. And yeah, that's my opinion on what I translated into being, you know.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Highline Ballroom here in New York City. I'd like to thank the legendary Eric Burdon for his time. I also want to give a mad shout out to Mariana, his wife, for arranging my time with Mr. Burdon, as well as the staff and management here at the Highline Ballroom for their hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.
This world is not for me. I'll make a new one. Wait and see. Homelessness has seized the land. I will not beg. I will demand. I won't give up. And one day soon, the truth will spill into your living room. Water, water, water. The truth put down the fire. Water, water, water. Truth to shame the liar. Yeah. All right. This world is not what it seems. Behind these eyes is a curse of dreams.